All right, welcome to Social Distillation, the submarine still of the internet, where we attempt to drop the bead and pour white lightning straight onto your brain. What are we talking about today, Sebo?
Well, we've got a few topics, not quite a potpourri, but because they will be somewhat connected, except for probably the one at the end if we have time. I wanted to talk about, and we'll do that first for those that clicked on the title uh, because of what it says. I want to talk about the real reason Claudine Gay should have been fired. And yes, we have the annoying things, and I can speak from inside academia on the things that are happening, but there's something else that I think is more important. Then what did you want to talk about? You brought up uh, Elon Musk and his little
Yeah, I think
beef
that,
with
that
Mark Cuban.
yeah, it segues right into that.
Yeah, because it has to do with DEI, which is semi-relevant, even though you'll see the difference here in a second.
Mhm.
And then just for fun, I've been analyzing the tush push as I've been watching games this year, and Philadelphia gets plenty of primetime games, so we get to watch them every time they come on. And them being your rival, I'm sure you've watched as well. But I wanted to get some visuals, and it's actually a really long process of finding the pictures I want
Mhm.
because anytime you type in quarterback sneak, all you get is Philadelphia. And I wanted different versions of it from different teams. And so I had to try many, many, many search terms to get the pictures I wanted. And it's still not exactly what I wanted, but I think it'll make the point I want.
All right.
Anything else you want to add to that list before we get going?
Nope, that's sounds like a good range of topics. Hopefully, my brain will last long enough because I'm still dealing with whatever this crud is.
Yeah. Okay, so Claudine Gay. It's the big topic right now, and that's why it's going to be nice clickbaity titles. So again, if you're here, thank you for coming, and please stick around for a few minutes to see why we're trying to be a little bit different. Because what you've heard about is her testimony. We've kind of touched on that, which is ridiculous, but that's the same ridiculousness we're getting from the FBI, from the heads of universities, from the heads of corporations, from the senators and congresspeople themselves, from the president himself, from the former president himself. It's the same, won't answer a freaking question directly. And it's fine to qualify something, but answer it directly and then say, but there are other cases. It's like the Nikki Haley uh, Civil War question, where what caused the Civil War, and she refused to say slavery, and it caused a big kerfuffle. You can give the direct answer and then say, but there's a deeper problem behind it.
Mhm.
You could have said, well, slavery was an issue, but this is actually something I don't envy the politicians involved at the time because it was a horrendous act, but we had to balance this thing of states' rights, and so we had to make a decision as a country. So you could have started with, yes, the thing that you want to hear, the answer that you want to hear, but here's how it's complicated. You could have done that. That's different than qualifying it from the beginning and then trying to skirt around the answer. So there's two different things. So that's the first one. The second one is her plagiarism, which as a student myself, as someone who has higher education degrees that had to write papers to get that and is a published author, yeah, that's disqualifying in and of
Mhm.
itself because you're trying to set an example for your student body. You basically faked your way to the top. There's something to be said about that. There is an argument that maybe the best person in any specific field shouldn't be the head administrator. It should be the best administrator. But that doesn't negate the fact that she lied her way to the top. And that's disqualifying in and of itself. So let's push those aside because those have been beat to death by everybody else. This is the real reason she should have been fired. Not that. Dang it. This. She was the spearhead in the
Yep.
movement to get rid of one of the greatest minds in Harvard and in our institutions, period. She he was already tried and sentenced by the Harvard board for everything that went in front of her after she was hired. And yes, he got a little bit of a slap on the wrist, but he really didn't do a whole lot. So this is the New York Times. I brought up a lefty source to begin with to go through it, and it gives a very positive spin to her actions on why he should have been uh, released and suspended and all these things. And people say, oh, he wasn't fired, he was suspended. Oh, he just wasn't allowed in his lab. This is a death sentence for a tenured professor who relies on his research. So this to any other professor that didn't get some of the publicity he got in the coming years would have been the end of his career. He would have every paper he released after this would have been looked at with scrutiny and all of the above. He probably would have eventually lost his tenure, which she actually pushed for and didn't get her way completely. But the sentence does not match the allegations. In fact, if you dig into the allegations, this is a little less biased in the university's favor source. The former assistant that originally accused him, does this remind you of the Sabatini case? Had an axe to grind, accused him of sexual harassment. In that investigation, which, whoops, we have a link to, ruled that he hadn't sexually propositioned or touched anyone. And so they recommended some sensitivity training for the off-color remarks and stuff. And that's where it was lying until Gay showed up with her fellow dean, Lawrence Bobo, who Lawrence Bobo also had beef with Mr. or Dr. Fryer. Why did they have beef with Dr. Fryer? Well, a lot of people would like to go here, which is where he really became popular in the last few years, because he did this empirical analysis of racial differences in police use of force, where he determined that the police were actually less likely to shoot a black assailant than they were to shoot a white or a Hispanic or any of the other ethnic groups' assailants. Now, they were more likely to rough them up, but we could speculate on what the reasons are. Maybe they're more likely to rough them up to prevent the fact that they would have to shoot somebody later, or something along those lines. But he released this paper. It was very well done, and no one could fight it on the merits. So they basically tried to smear his name with those previous allegations. But that's not why he had beef with Mr. Bobo. Why he had beef with Mr. Bobo was because he's been working in education for a long time and doing pilot programs, getting beneath the veil of effective schools, evidence from New York City, his Harvard study, done with the labs he was no longer able to go to after his accusations. Another one, injecting charter schools' best practices into traditional public schools, evidence from field experiments. So basically, what are we doing? Taking a regular school and the 5 best practices from a charter school and putting them in there. Increased instruction time, more effective teachers and administrators. Oh my goodness, more effective teachers and administrators? High dosage tutoring data, driven instruction, and a culture of high expectations. Injecting those things into a regular school with regular students. And oh my gosh, did they not get good results from it? And his work, let me see if I can zoom this in, and his work with the background information on culture. Oh my gosh. When white kids get good grades, their social status goes up, but Black and Hispanic kids, their social status goes down. This is among their peers, not among their uh, uh, their teachers. So that would be the big argument. Oh, well, teachers are holding them back. No, this is among their peers. As white kids' grades go up, their peers, they become more popular. Black and Hispanic, they become less popular with their peers. Is that an incentive structure that causes good grades or bad grades? Your friends don't like you if you get good grades. Are you more likely to make good grades or not make good grades?
Mm-hmm.
Think of yourself as a 15-year-old boy again. Not as us now, where we could say, oh, screw you, I'm going to achieve. A 15-year-old boy who wants to be accepted by his peers. Not the best environment. So those are the 3 things that started the fight with Bobo and then continued when Gay got in office and actually gave Bobo power to do something by putting him on the board that evaluates tenure and evaluates these things.
I can't. This is my shocked face. We saw this before. I don't remember all the details, but um, I can't remember her name. J.J. Abrams' wife is also a big producer, and she used the Me Too scandal to get a bunch of her um, friends and colleagues and clients installed in high level positions using Me Too scandals to oust men and get women put in charge. When I've ranted about Prime Studios, that's a big part of it. Is the guy who was originally running it and had greenlit some projects that looked like they were going to be pretty good, and he had his own dubious Me Too scandal, and he was ousted, and Jennifer Salke, the current head, was brought in. Um, it's not new. I hope more people are paying attention to it now than before. Um, but
Well, it's the way it's been done because we went in depth in the Sabatini cancellation where he was actually dating the coworker, and she had texted her friends that she's going to take him down because he wanted to discontinue the relationship, but he still wanted to keep her around in the lab, and all of those kind of things that it's really difficult to navigate, especially since Sabatini was a single guy. I think Roland was married at the time, but he didn't go as far as Sabatini. He didn't have actually a relationship with any of these girls. But one instance that's brought up in a documentary I'm about to share some clips with, not about this, but about what he was doing in education, just to kind of bring it home. But one of his aides was at a conference or something or another and sent him a sexy picture in her nice little dress. And he made a comment back like, "Oh, be careful out there because people might put something in your drink," or something along those lines. And that was considered evidence of his flirtatiousness. But she initiated the contact by sending him a sexy picture. And so one of the other aides that's disappointed about this at the end of the second article I brought up, she is interviewed in this documentary that I'm going to show some clips from, and she is interviewed as having talked to that woman that was jaded because she was not being forced to, but recommended to leave the lab because she was being less productive, and that she was going to get revenge. So this was testimony from this other girl that went before Harvard and then was not allowed before the panel that Gay and Bobo were on. So it's this is the problem with the Me Too movement, is we're confusing actual Harvey Weinstein type behavior with flirtatious women having a beef with the guy they were flirtatious with later.
mhm.
And that's a difficult thing to navigate. Yes, we would all like to sit on our pedestal and say, well, as her academic advisor, you should have been perfectly pristine in every uh, interaction you had. But yet you have a group of people all together for 80, 100 hours a week sometimes doing these research projects, crunching these numbers, having dinner together, going and getting takeout and coming back to the lab and being together more than you've been with your family in 10 years. And if you've got a sense of humor or you've got any kind of personality, something is going to be not work related in the conversation because you're trying to be human at the same time. You're
Yeah.
not, you're not in there. Yeah, these are the best of the best economists. You're not going to be in there just talking economists talk the whole time if you're spending that much time together. And if you have any kind of male female interaction, that leaves a very dangerous spot for everybody to be in
Mhm.
if you're the male, because the female's always believed.
Well, the other thought I had, similar to the one of the big reasons Claudine Gay should have been fired is because she shouldn't have been hired in the first place. And all of those presidents that were up there looking like morons illustrate the profound mediocrity of our higher education, especially the most elite institutions. They are actually the most mediocre when it comes to actual academics, actual intellect. If you just listen to them talk, or was it Gad Sad that says what is it? Only an academic could come up with something so stupid.
Yes, in the parasitic mind, right there.
And that is because, and Claudine Gay is a great illustration of this, is because the thing isn't the thing. The narrative is what matters, not actual academic pursuits. You brought up several instances of rigorous studies, published studies that were that infuriated people because of the narrative, not because of the facts or the methodology.
Well, and this is why I made this the big point, because they weren't after Roland Fryer as a person. They were there to stop what he was trying to get done because it would have taken away the issue. So they are sacrificing young people of color in urban districts to keep their agenda going. And she is part of it, and she was hired for that.
Mhm.
That's what she was hired for. That's why she is a mouthpiece, because she said, I'll do it. Let's see what this is the clips I wanted to show. Let's see exactly what he was trying to accomplish. This is from a mini documentary, really good on YouTube, how Claudine Gay canceled Harvard's best black professor. And let's just start from here, and I'll pause. I don't know what the copyright things are on this, so I'll pause frequently, so we can. And if you're hearing this and then it skips forward, that means there was some copyright thing. So look at the screen right now and go to that if you're hearing this and you didn't get to see any video. It's a great documentary from top to bottom, but I'm starting at 4:52, and we're going to end up going to about 6:25 with a little bit of a skip ahead in here. But this is what he was trying to accomplish. Oh no, we're going to go into a quote from him and then what he was trying to accomplish. He starts with the quote I'm going into is he was going into these schools and talking to the teachers and administrators and asking them about their programs. This is where we're starting.
Yeah, sound on.
Yep. Let me make sure. Dang it. All right, let me skip back a couple seconds then.
And the truth that matters most to Roland is how to fix schools.
Can you hear it?
For all the other young Rolands in the world.
It wasn't until I got involved in education I heard about the cardiac test. You'd walk around a school and they would say, we have a new program, after school program. I would say, oh, that's great. Does it work? And they would say, yeah. And I said, well, how do you know it works? You could feel it in your heart.
Welcome to the social sciences these days. Let me skip forward a couple seconds. All right, so now we get to Harlem.
Zone. It's a revolution, taking in poor black kids and within 3 years getting them to catch up to and even exceed their white peers at richer schools.
You know, we really got to think about this gap here, because there's like a white-black gap going on. I'm not sure why you guys can't actually achieve.
So he piloted this program in Harlem, took these underprivileged kids, and not only did they close the gap, but you saw by that graph, they actually overachieved their more wealthy white peers. And again, this is the thing. This is the machine that he was trying to create that is being blocked by the likes of Claudine Gay and Bobo and pretty much the heads of every institution right now.
He starts piecing together a 5-part formula for the zone's success, and he finds that a central piece is aggressive human capital management. Economists speak for the practice of firing tons of teachers.
You ask the teachers, what do you think you need to educate these kids? And we got answers like, well, all we need is smarter kids.
I said, all you need is a new job.
Yeah, I do like that he's not only an intelligent guy, but he's a really good speaker. And part of that might be his background, because he comes from a real humble background. He had to work his way up. The typical poor urban white black kid that earned his way all the way to where he got in Harvard, which is another point that people should understand, is this guy earned his way there. Claudine Gay was a rich kid that went through boarding school, went through charter schools, went through the best universities, all the way up to the top. And as we discussed earlier, cheated her way all the way to the top. Let's see. I got another couple seconds on here. I can't remember what this last part was.
The zone's formula is simply operationalized common sense.
Oh, yes.
Revolutionizing schools won't require a revolution.
They need.
Yeah. Operationalized common sense. And it was those 5 things that I brought up in that paper, which were the more effective teachers and administrators, high dosage tutoring, increased instructional time, data-driven instruction, and a culture of high expectations. And it turned out, I think, in some of his research, that culture of high expectations was actually the linchpin. Which we talk about the soft bigotry of low expectations, right? Well, it's the exact opposite. The answer is expect something from these kids, demand something from these kids, and they will deliver.
Yeah, the other sick part of this is, you know what those 5 things don't really require?
Money. In fact, they require less money, because a lot of teachers and administrators would be fired.
Exactly. You are reworking the resources you already have to put them to more effective use. But the narrative says more money. We're not spending enough on schools. It's the #1 budget item for any local or state government. But no, we're not spending enough on schools. More. And here comes someone with empirical data that says, actually, you just use your resources smarter, and here are my results.
Yeah, so I mean, I think we can go ahead and end that there, because I think this is the real reason not only Claudine Gay should be fired, but we should examine every administrator, top of every university, and see what actions they've done to actually, they call themselves progressives, to actually stand in the way of real progress.
It is a great segue into Mark Cuban's little Twitter thread about DEI, because it is a clear-faced example that what he says DEI isn't what it is. I'm blanking on her name, but Glenn Lowry had on an administrator, a diversity administrator, who was fired, I think, from Santa Barbara. It was one of the University of California schools, and because she was insensitive and discriminatory. And as she tells the story, she was coming in and being told that using language like, make sure you're on time and dress professional, that's colonial language. And she's an old school diversity hippie. She wasn't hip to all this new DEI stuff. And she's going, this is the first, and the woman is black. And it's the first time in my life saying things like that are considered white. And she was blown away. Because that's actually what DEI is it's Marxist power politics. All right. I'm trying to decide how much.
Hold on. Let's add a little humor to this, because the sports announcers are going to have a hard time if they have to call a West Virginia game here in the near future. We were talking about the insensitivity and stuff, and we remember when I think it was UCLA or one of those Southern California schools, where the business professor was fired because a Chinese word sounded like the word we're not allowed to say. So now here you go. Imagine being
That's
the
awesome.
announcer having to announce this name every time he makes a tackle. Tackle
Awesome.
by the fellow.
Number 10. Ah,
Yeah, number 10 makes the tackle.
okay.
Noah K. Noah K.
Let's see here. This one. So this started off as a response to Elon Musk stating simply discrimination on the basis of race, which DEI does, is literally the definition of racism. At no point in this giant word salad does Mark Cuban actually address those two main points. He made two key points in a very simple statement. One, discrimination on the basis of race is literally the definition of racism. True or not, address that. And two, that's what DEI does, is discriminate based on race. At no point does he deny that, or what he instead does is he goes on to explain, he goes on to define it as he sees it. Let me help you out and give you my thoughts on DEI. Diversity. Good businesses look where others don't to find the employees that will put your business in the best possible position to succeed. You may not agree, but I take it as a given that there are people of various races, ethnicities, orientation, etc., that are regularly excluded from hiring consideration. Blah, 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 blah. Equity. Treating people equally does not mean treating them the same. I made the mistake for a lot of years thinking it did. Most workforces don't have the depth of management to do this well. When it is not done well, it can create tension and resentment. Inclusion. One of my favorite sayings is that great employees reduce the stress of those around them. Why DEI is like healthcare. One of the lessons I've learned in healthcare is that most CEOs don't know and don't really want to know where their healthcare benefit dollars are going in. In their minds, it's not part of the core competency of their business. So in other words, they're just checking boxes and they're not actually paying attention to what it does. Now, I agree with him on that. And I think where it's kind of an accidental own, because where this is where most people probably put DEI diversity kind of stuff. We have to check these boxes. I don't really know. I don't really care. It's just, okay, we have hired these people because they do this stuff. Done. Okay. And they aren't actually looking at what are these people actually teaching and preaching. So what's the conclusion? If you don't think there's a need for DEI and it doesn't create a competitive advantage for your company, just look at the X post replies quotes below. Blah, blah, blah. So basically what he's saying is that your loss is my gain because I'm going to get better, happier employees, because DEI is all about just hiring lots of different kinds of people and putting them in a good space. I just noticed Clifton Duncan's reply of, you made a whole thread demonstrating you understand nothing.
Yeah. I should, if you click on the likes, my name would be in there. I already I saw
So
that one.
I did want to pull up this. No, wait, that's the wrong one. Dang it. Where'd it go? All right, your thoughts on that? While there's another reply here that I think is important, but
well, no, this is just like this is a good segue, because this is just like the answers that Gay and the other university heads gave during their testimony. They gave a bunch of platitudes that didn't answer the question that sound good. They sound good on paper. And he never really answered the question, because then he would have to say, well, it's not racist because Robin DiAngelo says that racism only runs in one direction. And that's from me, Mark Cuban, who I can speak from myself, and I can have this white guilt because I'm an ultra rich billionaire white guy. And everybody below me is suffering in some way because of what I do. So I'm going to alleviate my white guilt by having a DEI program to help everyone else. Now that's me putting the best face on it. The other face on it is 50% of his money comes from China. And this is the start of a cultural revolution, and that's exactly what they want. So he knows if he doesn't skirt this line, every Dallas Mavericks game is going to be canceled in China. And if he says this and it pisses off 10% of Americans, what are we, 35% of his market? China's like 50. If we're 35% of his market and 10% of the people stop watching the Dallas Mavericks because of his attitude, then he loses 3.5% of his market share. If he pisses off the CCP, he loses 50% of his market share because the people don't matter there. The government shuts it off. That's what happened with Inez Cantor when he started wearing his Uyghur shoes, save the Uyghurs or help the Uyghurs or whatever it was. They stopped playing all Brooklyn games because he was there, unless they benched him or cut him. And then they started playing Brooklyn games again. If you lose your China share, you lose all of it. If you piss off Americans, you lose those that pay attention. That's it. That's where the NBA is right now. And that's the thing people will not hold to his head. People will not say to Mark Cuban, this is why you're saying what you're saying, is it not? But they keep arguing with him on the points that he's making. So he just framed the conversation around those 3 points he made. Now, Duncan came in and said, you don't understand anything, but he didn't address the root problem. He just had a nice little one-liner, which is okay because Duncan's an actor. He's not like a political scientist, and he's got, he's only got so much time. But no one's actually saying to him, dude, we understand. Mark Cuban, guess what? This is the concession I'm going to give to you. You're on Shark Tank for a reason because you're an amazing businessman. And only a ridiculously stupid businessman would drop 50% of their market share to please 10% of their market share. I get it. You're an amazing businessman. Just own it.
So one of the more common responses to, Walter Williams was saying this for decades, the late great, that these kinds of people using, Cuban as an example, they talk a big game about diversity, and yet 80% of the NBA is black. So is that not discrimination? And so it's not a new point, and so that's why I thought Cuban's response to that, because Musk to that big long thread said, cool, so when should we expect to see a short white/Asian woman on the Mavs? Okay. DEI does not mean you don't hire on merit. Of course, you hire based on merit. Diversity means you expand the possible pool of candidates as widely as you can. Once you have identified the candidates, you hire the person you believe is the best. What makes the whole "what about the players" comment ridiculous is that it presumes that all positions are hired based on some quantitative rather than subjective version of merit. They aren't. Even choosing the best basketball player is very much a guess, which is why the best players weren't always the first pick in the draft and some go undrafted. The reality is that most positions hired in a company don't have a quantitative metric you can use to hire someone. How do you pick the best barista, sales assistant, marketing, or salesperson, etc.? More often than not, it's an educated guess. So when you see a company like IBM say that they want to add X% more people of color or women or whatever group, they already know that the majority of positions they hire for don't have metrics for picking the best. Ask Elon Musk. As Elon Musk said, if merit for a job is roughly the same, then the tie seeker should be diversity of all kinds, which is exactly what well-managed companies choose to do. DEI also does not mean you can't fire someone if you make a mistake. Of course you can. I'm a big believer in hire slow, fire fast. If it's the wrong person, fire them. Oh, buddy boy.
This is just a prime example of the Mott and Bailey argument. He's going back on the expanding your search argument, which no one can argue with. Because yeah, if you say, oh, I'm going to hire only rich white kids to be a lawyer in my firm, you are narrowing the talent pool, which is what people did back in the 60s and 70s and even 80s. A little less so in the 90s, and we hit a sweet spot around 2000, but that was a whole other mini episodes we've had. But if you narrow your talent pool based on race, yes, that's a good argument. But if you give out a metric for success and you allow everybody to apply, and it comes out with an unequal and unequitable result, that's what we're talking about. Trying to force equitable results actually narrows the talent pool, because now you have to get a certain result. So you narrow the talent pool based on these other immutable, unrelated to the job metrics, whether it's woman, whether it's black, whether it's Asian, Latino, whatever. And this is where this is the dialectic here. Cuban is playing the Mott and Bailey argument because what he gave was a very defensible position. And then as soon as you accept that argument, he reaches out a little bit more. But I think actually he's on the defensive. I'm hoping I think he's hoping just the argument dies and then he can claim victory. He's at Helm's Deep right now. And he's hoping Gandalf will come save him. But it's his position he picked. Yes, if you expand your pool to all people, you're going to get the best result based on merit. But the problem is that's not what DEI is.
Exactly.
Or that's not what it is now. That might have been how it started, but that's not what it is now. What it is now is equity. Equity is different than equality. What he's describing is equality. Equity is different because you need a certain result, so you have to narrow the talent pool to fill the spots.
He demonstrates that in his own response here, because this is the sleight of hand. Is he starts off,
well, Mott and Bailey is all about sleight of hand. It's all about it.
Yes.
That's
so here's the sleight of hand. Here, look at me redefining things. Now I'm going to slide in here with this. IBM just said they're going to hire X percentage of POCs and women. Wait a minute. That's not what you were just saying a second ago. What that is a hard quota. That has nothing to do with the merit you were just talking about. That's not even best guessing that you were talking about. That's a hard quota. You just completely changed the rules here.
Yeah. One of the defenses to this kind of tactic, I think a lot of businesses could benefit from, is I want your CV. And all I want on your CV as identifiers is your contact information and then your qualifications. I don't want to see your name. I don't want to see your age. I don't want to see anything else that could identify you in any way. It's the whole blind audition kind of thing. Then you eliminate any discriminatory factor. And it's all about merit. But they don't want to see that. This is the thing that would expose one of my biggest wake-up calls during this whole thing when I was trying to figure things out was when I came across the fact that the equity groups such as BLM and now the NAACP and the ACLU and all of these supposedly equality-based organizations were trying to knock things down like blind orchestra auditions, because they made them blind back in the we're supposed to be colorblind era. So you couldn't discriminate based on anything. You just heard the person play and you said, yes, you're in or you're out. And that because unequitable results were coming out of that, they were trying to get rid of that because you need to see the person so you can hire based on that. So now you see the person of color that is playing a little less bad than the Asian person, but you've got a bunch of Asian people, so you want to look good as an orchestra, so you hire the person of color, even though they weren't as good. And that's the curtain that needs to be pulled back. That's the clothes that aren't on the emperor. And nobody's bringing that to Cuban. They're letting him sit in his Bailey.
Well, and affirmative action was finally just struck down because they were doing basically what Cuban was advocating, because these schools would have a objective metric of these are the qualifications, but then in the best guessing, they were subjectively applying a different metric to Asian students to lower them so that they would end up with fewer because they decided they had too many and they needed more people of color and Asians don't count. And basically, Cuban is advocating that.
But he's doing it in a way that, unless you actually address the root problem, you're basically you're going to stay in the same tribes. It's
Mm-hmm.
and it's smart. He has to say these things to keep his Chinese audience.
Yeah.
He has to. I don't blame him, though. In fact, it actually would be illegal for him to do otherwise. Because if he loses 50% of his market share, he is beholden to his stockholders. It's a publicly traded organization. So he actually, by law, has to do this.
Well, one place where the Chi-Coms can't influence us yet, football. Because nobody likes it but us ugly Americans.
Yes. Which is funny because when you actually explain it to a foreigner in the right way, they're like, oh, I get it now. Because it's like chess. It's people chess. You know, you got your linemen, they can only do certain things. You got your receivers, they can only do certain things. You got your quarterback, he's like the queen. You know, he can do everything. And it's just, and when you explain it in that way, they're like, oh, I get it now. Now explain to me what these people can do. And then when they know what they can do, they understand the game. And it's just like any other game. Like hockey, my dad was super into hockey, but I can't really get into it. But I don't understand all the nuance of how they're playing. And that's why I can't get into it. And it's never been something that's interested me enough to learn enough about to actually be into the game. Football, I understand because I played it and I've watched it since I was like 11 years old and really paid attention. So it's really fun to watch for me because I understand the little things going on. That being said, I did a little breakdown. One of the controversial things going into this year, and it will be part of the rule making off season, is the old tush push. Philadelphia Eagles are great at the quarterback sneak because they say the tush push. Well, I've been really looking at it because other teams are trying to tush push and they're not as successful. So why are the Eagles more successful than everybody else? Is it Travis Kelce? No, Jason Kelce. Jason Kelce.
Yeah.
Yeah, Jason Kelce.
The not annoying Kelce.
The not annoying Kelce. Is it Jason Kelce? Is it Hurts? Is it the people pushing behind him? No, it's the scheme. And this is something that I was looking up in the NFL rule books, and I can't find anything that would address this. And all they need is to address one thing, and it's not about the push. It's about the line. Let me get the right picture. Okay, there we go. Share screen. This is Philadelphia lined up for the tush push. And this is what I wanted. I wanted a good overhead view. And this is pre-snap. Look at the way the line spacing is. It looks like they're lining up for a field goal. We got interlocking legs. We're pushed together. Look at him already leaned in there. The tight end's a little bit more space, and you got the guys coming back ready to push him. But it's this, they create a little mini wedge right here. And in fact, these linemen are a little too far off the ball, actually, technically.
Yeah.
But let's look at other teams lined up. This is our Texans. This is right before quarterback sneak against the Bills. Look at that line spacing. It looks like any other play. They're spaced out probably a good foot and a half in between each lineman in a normal setup, not a wedge. Here's the Buffalo Bills. This was a successful quarterback sneak against the Browns. Normal line spacing. Here's Buffalo Bills again in a different game. Set up for a quarterback sneak.
You can really see the difference in that one.
Yeah, you can really see the difference in that one. So let's compare that one to that one. It's not the tush. Whoops. It's not the tush push. That's the difference. It's the spacing. And I wish I could have found a video. And this is one thing because this is what got me thinking about it. They were showing an overhead during one of the games. I think it was the Philadelphia San Francisco game. But not only are they lined up like this, but they were edging in as the snap was about to happen. And I'm like, how is that not a false start?
Yeah.
It was like a rugby scrum. The linemen were pushing against each other, edging in, waiting for the snap to happen. And so already kind of getting a head start. So that's the issue to be addressed. So if you're the NFL league rules committee in the offseason, we have to address line spacing. You've got to have we're going to have a situation where we have a minimum and maximum line spacing.
Yeah.
Otherwise, then it's a perfectly legal play. And every other team in the league, here's the secret:
Hmm.
quit thinking about these two guys right here. There's the secret, because Kelsey goes in on all fours. He goes in bear crawling, and basically Hurts gets on his back, and the guy flying over the top can't get the right angle on him because he's flat on his back to get him over. And as long as these two guys can keep the push going and Kelsey basically carrying them through, that's the secret to the whole thing. Because otherwise, you're doing this. There's a gap here. There's a gap here for those linemen. This guy's centered up on the center. I don't know why nobody ever centers up on Kelsey. They all do this thing.
Yeah.
Because they're trying to shoot the gap is what they're trying to do. But someone's got to center up on Kelsey and basically lie on the ground and push up when the snap happens. If you want to defend this thing, you've got to get under Kelsey and push up so he can't bear crawl. And then have two guys to shoot the gap. There's your secret, guys. Everybody solves your problem.
Sin checks too.
Send checks to me when it, you know, I'm not gonna, I would never be a defensive coordinator, but I can see patterns and I can see things. And I think they're just overlooking this one stupid, simple thing because they're all thinking about the guys behind him pushing him.
Hmm. Yeah. And I mean, that certainly needs to be addressed because to me, that's just lame. Because it's not just the tush push, it's not just quarterback sneaks. You're seeing it more and more in running plays where a running back will get stood up and a lineman will come running in and start pushing him and pushing the pile. That's not football. Come on.
No, see, to me, that is football. Get the ball forward, whatever it takes. You know, if you're the defender, you got to defend that. I don't mind the lineman picking up and doing a little extra work. I told you what my pet peeve the other day when you said, "Oh, that wasn't a helmet to helmet or whatever." I
Yeah.
was like, "Yeah, it's not about the penalty to me. It's what he did. He gave the guy an extra 5 yards." I hate when, and this is coming from a former linebacker, I hate when you stand somebody up and the defensive lineman comes in from the backside and goes for the big hit and knocks the running back 5 more yards downfield. I'm for the offensive lineman doing that because his job is to get his guy down the field, whether it's blocking or any other way. When my own guy gives the guy I'm tackling 5 extra yards, that's going to piss me off, especially because he could give me a concussion in the process. But it's these guys that come from the backside of the play and try to land the big hit and end up giving the guy extra yards.
Yeah, when Palomalu did it, he was coming from the safety position. He was also trying to dislodge the ball. He wasn't just trying to land a big hit. He was trying to dislodge that ball.
Yeah,
That was
I'm all
his
about the
primary
big
goal.
hit on the receiver and all the old school stuff, but quit doing it from the backside. If you're on the
Giggity.
backside, grab and pull down or go for the strip. If
Giggity.
someone's holding up the back the ball carrier, try to
You're
knock
not
the
making
ball
it any
out.
better.
Try knocking the ball out.
No.
Put your hands on the ball. Put your hands on his ball.
Let's try and salvage this. Well,
Oh,
speaking of football,
there was a strip in one of the games last week where that guy came in and he punched it and it was like so accurate. It was unreal. I'm trying to remember what that game was. And one of the announcers was like, "Well, looks like your lesson young kids in the off season is take boxing lessons," because he hit it right on and popped that ball out.
well, it was a pretty decent weekend of games, and now with the playoffs all lined up, I shouldn't say this out loud because science says I'm jinxing myself, but I was thinking as I was watching this weekend, you know what? The way things have been going the last several weeks, my mid-year or pre-season prediction is actually looking like it might be possible of Bills
All
versus
of ours are.
Cowboys.
Yeah, all of ours.
Yeah.
And Bills actually, that game last weekend against Miami was so pivotal for the Bills. I mean, from the 2 seed to the 6 seed
Hmm.
is just massive. You 2 seed, you're going to get 2 home games. 6 seed, you get no home games
Hmm.
because you could never play the 7 seed unless both of y'all get all the way to the top. So being able to get 2 home games versus no home games, that last year, the Hamlin thing that happened, if they had won that game against Cincinnati that got canceled,
Yeah.
they would have had the bye week and they lost in the first round. I mean, this is how important that is. And so the Bills going from having a slump in the midseason to actually putting our predictions into good standing was all down to that last
Mhm.
game, especially against a quality opponent like Miami.
Well, and you made a good point for all of you tinfoil hatters out there. I hadn't thought of this, but this gives the Chiefs a better chance to advance to the next round because they have a much better chance against Miami than against Buffalo, even at home, because of the way they're totally different teams. And the way Miami plays, they match up a lot better to Kansas City.
Yeah, well, I don't know. I'm going to see how I can get that game, even though it's on Peacock, because I think I can because I signed up for YouTube TV for that championship
Mhm.
game for the 21-day free trial, and I have an alarm to cancel it before it's over. So, but I think I can get Peacock through that too. But Tyreek Hill on Sneed, I'm actually really because who are you going to take out? Because Kansas City's got a shutdown quarter in Sneed. And that's why teams have so much trouble passing against them. And but you got Tyreek Hill on one side and Jalen Waddle on the other. And you got elite level running backs in A-Chain, who's a rookie, and Mostert, who are faster than almost any DB out there, both of them. I'm actually curious how the matchup's going to work out because you got a shutdown corner and then a pretty good secondary versus probably the best spread of wide receivers and running backs you can get on a field. If they had a quality tight end in Miami, there would be no defending them. It's now in the run game it's a little different, but I'm actually curious to see how this matchup pulls out because I'm actually rooting for Miami because as a Texans fan, if we can take care of Cleveland at home, our next best chance of not having to go to Baltimore is an upset in the wild card games
Hmm.
because any wild card team that wins uh, their matchup is going to go to Baltimore because we're the number 4 seed. I don't want to go to Baltimore in Baltimore. I want Miami to go to Baltimore
Yeah.
and then beat up on each other and hopefully Miami come out on top and then we play Miami at home in a championship game. That would be the best result. So I think Miami's our best bet at getting a wild card win, especially since Kansas City apparently decided to take the stickum out of their gloves this season and not be able to catch a pass. So not Miami, Kansas City. Did I say Kansas City?
I don't know. I'm zoning out.
Yeah. So I think Miami has the best chance of making that happen. I don't have a lot of faith in Pittsburgh, who kind of fell backwards into the
Yeah.
playoffs. I mean, yeah, they won their last game against Baltimore, but it was against the bottom
Backups. Yeah.
32 on the roster of Baltimore. Uh, so they kind of they're the only team really that backed their way into the playoffs. That's how exciting this year was.
Philly.
Every other team had to play for it.
Philly has had a pretty epic collapse.
Yeah,
Um,
I saw a good reel on that on Instagram earlier. It's the 3 drunk guys walking up to the door, and it had the NFC going into the playoffs, and it had Cowboys, 49ers over 2 of the faces, and Philly over the other one. And they're all drunk walking in, and they're trying to put the keys in the door, and the Philly guy collapses forward, smashes the camera, and falls into the bushes. And it was like, yeah, that's pretty much how it went with Detroit. I mean, I don't know how they're going to do without Laporta though. Is that, but also
hey,
Pittsburgh without Watt.
yeah. I
That's a
didn't see
big.
what those injuries were, so I didn't know if they were as bad as they looked.
I'm dreading our matchup with Cleveland because they killed us earlier at home this year,
Mhm.
but we didn't have Stroud. So we'll see if Stroud is the game changer that we think he is, we have a chance. It's tough.
So all right, so we made our preseason predictions. Do you have a now playoff prediction of who's it's going to be with the remaining teams?
Who's Dallas play this week?
Um, brain fart. Who do they play?
Green Bay.
Green Bay. That's right. Green Bay at home.
Okay, Dallas pulls off the first round. And then it's going to depend on who. Let me get some brackets up. Because the next round always depends on who wins the first.
I just don't see. I don't know how much it matters in the NFC because I don't see anyone beating San Francisco the way they're playing right now, the way they've been playing the last several weeks. Since Purdy, they had a few injuries, and so they kind of dipped a little bit in the middle of the season. But since everyone's come back healthy, they've looked pretty dang unstoppable.
Let's see. Let me bring up this picture
Well,
here.
until Baltimore, I'm really thinking we're going to get a San Fran Baltimore rematch is what it looks like to me.
Okay, this already is semi pre-filled, and I don't agree with it because I would hate to agree with it because they have our guys losing in the first. Oh, dang it! Don't give me that crap picture. Let's get a better one. Here we go. Oh, that's better. Yes, that's much better. Okay, so here's our brackets here. Let's see. KC's got the bye, and they'll play whatever lowest seed comes out. So, wait a minute. This is
This is Tampa
2020.
2021. Yep.
Okay, well, KC
Wrong
does
playoff.
still have okay, let me
You'd think
2024.
you wouldn't have to say that.
Yeah. Uh,
Good job, Google. That looks right.
yeah. There we go. Okay. So Buffalo, Pittsburgh, I definitely got put Buffalo in that one. KC, Miami, I'm hoping for the upset there, and I think it's possible. So I'm going to go with Miami there. Texans, Browns. This is a 50-50 game. That's the problem here. We've got the immovable object, which is the #1 defense in the Browns, versus a really good offense when Stroud is out there. But also, we'll see if they learn their lessons with because our defense is pretty dang good, but we looked silly in the game last time. And I don't know if it was because they were constantly out there and they were getting tired, or if it was a good game plan. So we'll see. I'm going to go Texans because I'm a homer on that one. But I think that's a 50-50 game
I'm
in reality.
the only upset I see this weekend is Tampa over Philly.
You don't
I
think Miami have a chance? Oh, you talked about that. Oh.
yeah, I think the top seeds except for
No, you know who I have an upset on the NFC side? LA over Detroit. LA is one of the hottest teams in the second half of the season. When
I
they
was
got Kyron Williams back and their run game got going, it opened up.
I was thinking that until this weekend against San Fran when they had to win to get in the playoffs and they struggled against the backups. So that made me feel more comfortable with the Lions' chances there.
Okay. Did they show the seeding here? Okay. No, but I think I know it. So if Miami wins, then they go to Baltimore. And if Buffalo and Houston win, they'll play each other, which sucks because then we would have to
Play in
play in
Buffalo.
Buffalo. Yeah. So the best news would be 2 upsets, Pittsburgh over Buffalo. And because that would mean Pittsburgh goes to Baltimore and then we play Miami at home, which that's still not a good situation because Miami is we're gonna have to play the best eventually, but you kind of want them to beat each other up a little bit. But I actually, you know what? We haven't tested ourselves against Buffalo this year. So, and it's a very similar scheme. in
Yeah.
both teams. So that actually might make for an exciting game. The problem is we're a dome team, and going up to Buffalo in January is not the best thing for a dome team to do.
Hopefully Stroud played in enough crappy weather at Ohio State.
Yeah, yeah. So I'm thinking the most I think Miami's going to pull it off. So that would be Miami, Baltimore, Buffalo, Houston. If I'm a realist, I'd say Buffalo takes that, and it will be Miami, Baltimore. Baltimore already spanked the shit out of Miami once this year.
Hmm.
I'm gonna have to say Baltimore there. So it'll be Buffalo, Baltimore, in Baltimore. Baltimore's just so hot right now.
Hmm.
I picked Buffalo at the beginning of the season, but if they come in second place, that's still a pretty close pick. I'm gonna put my pride aside and say Baltimore takes that. On the NFC side, Dallas beats Green Bay. LA, I think, is the upset. So they'll end up going to San Francisco. And I think Philly holds at home and you get a Dallas Philly
It's
try
actually
match.
they're it's not at home. It's at Tampa because Philly is the wild card and Tampa's the division. But
Yeah, but
I
I think
there's still it's still going
I
to be
think
an
the
upset.
NFC South is the
Yeah.
trash division of the
Yeah.
year. And Philadelphia, for all their struggles, still has a pretty complete team.
Hmm.
And unless you never know. Baker Mayfield and Evans could be on just one of their click games, which I benefited from in the fantasy year this year, and have the upset there. But I just can't. I think Philly takes that. So who's higher seed, Philly or LA?
Philly. So Philly would go to Dallas and
Okay,
LA
Philly,
would go to
Dallas,
San
yeah.
Fran.
And I think Dallas takes Philly again at home. If it was the other way around, I would say Philly, but at home,
Mhm.
Dallas takes Philly. LA against San Fran, that's going to be a rough matchup, but I think San Fran takes it. So Dallas, San Fran takes it. So I think Baltimore, San Francisco rematch from what, 2000 and
From 3 weeks ago, 2 weeks ago. They played on Christmas
yeah,
and Baltimore spanked them. I think it'll be a much more competitive game, but I think it is going to be that rematch and
yeah,
Baltimore will win.
yeah. Those are my picks. I'm trying to think if I took too many risks there. I mean, obviously we disagreed about the upsets.
Hmm.
You think Tampa is going to beat. Okay, so you tell me your path then. If Tampa beats Philly, that means Tampa goes to San Fran, which is an easy win for San Fran.
Hmm.
And Detroit goes to Dallas. So that's
Yep.
a rematch of the bad call game.
Yep. But I think Dallas plays that game better and they win to go on to lose to San Francisco again. Hopefully it's a better game than last playoffs against San Francisco. But I don't see them winning that game.
Okay, and you said KC is going to beat Miami.
Yep.
Do you have an upset on that side?
No.
You think Texans will beat
Yeah, I
the
think the Texans will beat the Browns and
Browns?
then lose in Baltimore, and then KC will beat the Dolphins but lose uh in Buffalo.
And then so you guys
So
still have Buffalo, Baltimore.
yep.
Okay, so
Yeah, I have
Baltimore.
1 versus 2 on both sides.
So we've got okay. So here's the most interesting question: Baltimore versus San Francisco in the Super Bowl. What are our food choices? You brought up
Crab
Baltimore
cakes
crab
for
cakes. Yeah,
Baltimore. Yeah.
definitely. I've been waiting for crab cakes because when's the last time Baltimore was there? That was Baltimore, San Francisco in the
Hmm.
cap days. So 2012.
Yeah.
Yeah, somewhere 2012, 2013, because it was the cap when he was playing well days, the year he played well. Uh, and then San Fran, what's the food? I did rice-a-roni already once, which gosh, I love
Um,
rice-a-roni, but
Bowl full of human feces and used needles. I
come
was I
on, man. This is the one positive thing about San Francisco is their football team. We got at least I'm thinking
uh,
maybe some Asian fusion, maybe
see. I was
something.
thinking we learned how to go dig oysters without killing ourselves.
Yeah, I almost grabbed some that day. Uh, we just got to do the low tide. Low tide makes it easy. Uh, but then what was I researching the how to flush them or
Yeah.
whatever? Yeah, because we don't want Galveston water in there.
Give them a little purge and then shuck them up.
Oh, Do they do oysters? No, San Francisco's not known for oysters. You're
Yeah, that
thinking the Northeast.
no, but well, San Fran is way north, and so dock, their pier district is huge seafood. It's a huge seafood area. Yeah,
Yeah, but I'm saying specifically oysters. Oysters and seafood are
I think that works for San Fran.
all right. I'll look it up, but yeah, you're playing a dangerous game, shucking oysters at home, but especially pulled from Galveston Bay, which is funny because Galveston's actually known for their oysters too. And I'm like, yeah, I've been in Galveston Bay, but realistically, if you look at
Yeah.
Baltimore, crabs are kind of like oysters. They feed on the bottom, and you look at what comes out of that, the Potomac and everything.
Oh
It's like,
yeah.
is Galveston any worse than that? Or
Nope.
nope, not really. So we just trust it and we go with it.
All right. Well, we'll
Yep.
see how that turns out, and we will see y'all Friday for some more Wheel of Time reading.
Oh yeah, we're getting close to the end. Maybe two more before the end of Knife of Dreams.
Mm-hmm.
And then we start with the Sanderson stuff. And this is going to be my
Yeah.
first reread through the Sanderson stuff. So I'm actually going to read it as normal, not speed read or anything.
Mhm.
So this is going to be my first reread through the Sanderson books. And we'll see how that goes. But we're going to get the contrast here because we both love Knife of Dreams.
Yeah.
And it's coming to a conclusion. Did we give anything we need disclaimers for this time
No,
around?
we just talked about stupid academics.
Stupid academics and then fun with sports. Those are our predictions. They're on the record. If anybody in the audience wants to place bets, it's not necessarily legal in our state, but we can make fools of yourself bets. I did send the trophy to our fantasy football winner. He should be getting that hopefully before the game and send us a picture. But yeah, later, dudes.
Later.
Go Texans.